Hi, my name is Dana Arnett, co-host of Wicked Marketing, along with my partner, Carlos Sapene. You can find more information about us and our business on LinkedIn, or if you have any questions, email us at info@wickedbionic.com. Subscribe to Wicked Marketing on Apple Podcasts and write an awesome review for us. We're also on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Play. Thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Carlos.
Hello, welcome to our podcast, everybody. We're going to talk about something interesting that maybe something that you might not have thought of as far as business, and it's a space that Carlos and I are in. It's called the government contracting space that's working with government agencies like maybe the Department of Public Works or the City of Los Angeles or, the Department of Water and Power. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell this little story because Carlos, I give him props on this. So like 3 years ago, it was December, and we were just trying to figure out what way to expand beyond the business of the entertainment business, right? Mm-hmm. And Carlos goes, let's get into government contracting. I heard there's money there. And I'm like, immediately, because this is just me, my mind was like, no way. I don't know what that is, but that sounds really hard, right?
Yeah.
And then what did you do? You started applying.
Yeah, I think the first step, government contracting is very different from your traditional business process, right? In the private sector. So you have to learn all these steps that go into it.
And language, right?
And language. The great thing to know is that there are agencies out there that are part of the process of government contracting. And when you're either a small or mid-sized business, and even large-scale businesses can take advantage, obviously, of government contracting, there are agencies out there to help you figure out all the things that you need to know in order to be able to do that.
I'll recommend.
Right? So the process itself.
Maybe we should talk about what it is, like in general, like government contracting for a marketing agency.
Yeah. So, and this is applicable to practically every business out there.
Every business.
Government contracting is providing services for the government agencies, right? So in our case, we provide services for the Los Angeles Public Library in the marketing space. We help them do their media placement. So we create the strategies of where and how they reach people within the city of Los Angeles. But there's a million other services
and products
even products that can be provided to the government. And it is a competitive landscape. But if you're a small business, there are these things called set-asides, which are a percentage of larger contracts that are reserved in particular for small businesses in order to help small businesses and the economies of local areas grow.
So that we can participate in something that's larger that we couldn't necessarily really go in some big construction project, but they might need marketing. And so it's to the big companies' advantage to have a small business or a woman-owned business as part of their contract. So that's advantageous in many ways. The one thing I do want to say, Carlos, about what it is, there is a process like Carlos was saying, but the actual space is, because there's a requirement for government agencies. Every agency is different. It might be the city, the county, the state, the federal government, but there's a requirement that they can't just go, oh, I think I'd like to use Wicked Bionic for marketing for this $150,000 contract. They're not allowed to do that because it has to be fair. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they put out a request for a proposal, which is called an RFP, to anybody. Right? Mm-hmm. They post it on their website, whatever that may be, any government site. And then anybody that's registered will get a notification. We get every notification around marketing and consulting and advertising, because that's what we're known for within that. And then you decide if you want to write a proposal and try to get it, which is basically what we did for the Los Angeles. What was theirs? They wanted a media campaign for their initiatives, right? Mm-hmm. Very, very simple. And you might think, we thought, oh gosh, everybody in LA is going to go for this, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to go for this particular contract. It's Los Angeles Public Library, and it's a 3-year contract. And Carlos and I are like, it didn't matter what anybody else was doing. We put our heart and our soul into a 54-page proposal and made it beautiful. And think we had 4 weeks to do that in, and we turned it in. And amazing, it was our very first proposal, and by the grace of God, we got it.
We got it. And it's been an amazing partner to us, and we're very grateful for them.
And how many people were there competing for when we found out? Because we asked.
Yeah, there were a lot. I think what is important is if you are going to think about government contracting, that you're aware that it's not your traditional business cycle at all. It's not like you start calling these government agencies and you're like, hey.
You develop relationships outside, but there's no.
Yeah. And it's a lot of time and effort being put into relationships and keeping those relationships. So it's almost like keeping a warm lead is more keeping a relationship.
Right. And it doesn't mean that just because you have the relationship, like, that you're going to get the gig, but obviously when people know you, they're paying attention to the things that you deliver to them. And like I said, I don't know if 3 years later, if we'd be really focusing that much on the government contracting work if we hadn't gotten that first contract, which inspired us to want to do more. Because I will tell you, it's really a great competitive landscape out there. And there are, like, the government needs the services and the products that you have. And they put out RFPs for piping systems. They put it out for anything that you can imagine. Probably just not acting. I haven't seen one for acting. Pens, promotional items.
But they do create commercials.
Videography, big deal.
We saw an RFP for the Navy that was like $60 million.
There was this guy in Los Angeles, a videographer, and somebody had suggested that he, check out the government space. So he looked at the city of Los Angeles. He's like, okay. And he did all the things he was supposed to do. And he applied for it. He won it because there were like 3 other videographers in LA, amazingly, that were the only ones that did the proposal. And he got it. It was a $600,000 first gig. I mean,
that's great.
There's amazing things out there. So there are some resources, and we'll give you some Los Angeles-based resources. But the space, it's very contractual, right? I mean, there are very definite rules from when you bill them to when you receive money to how you negotiate the contract throughout the years.
Well, and one of the most important things to say is you have to be prepared to deliver.
No joke. Because
people take it as, I'll pitch this, right? I'm from there. I'll negotiate once. There's no negotiating.
No.
There really isn't.
Right.
This is what they need. This is what they want. This is what you deliver. And you have to be careful not to pitch something that is impossible for you. Right. You have to be able to fund what the initiative.
That is a big, and I want to say that's a really good point, Carlos, because we went out for a contract for something very big in the city that we believed in very much and wanted to help them and be a part of it. And ultimately we got shortlisted to the very top after a year and a half. And we did interviews in person, both Carlos and I, with the people, the commission and everything. And what it came down to is it was a $14 million project, and our agency couldn't fund that or be able to support those financials. But what we did learn, so we were taken off that list, but what we did learn is when I went back to them and said, so what could we have done differently? And they said, you should have partnered with an agency that had the financial support.
Yeah.
And what a great thing. We learn along the way, so there's many things. You could just be we hire subcontractors all the time to work on our projects. So there's a lot of work out there. It's definitely something worth looking into.
So when you're starting in government contracting, the first things that you're going to want to do is identify one of these agencies that is in your local area that can guide you through the process, because there are certain certifications you need to have. Sometimes each department has a certification, like here in Los Angeles, the Metro department of the Department of Transportation has its own certification program in order for you to work with them. The Department of the Airports also has a certification to work with them. So what I would recommend is to identify a subsegment of the government that you're interested in, passionate about, that you're willing to put in the time and the effort that it takes to cultivate the relationships to go in there and really pay attention to the certifications that you need. Make sure that you are connecting with the right people in order to do it. It is a solid business strategy,
and
definitely,
meaningful, very meaningful.
But it is
it's time.
taxing.
And what's great is you have options when Carlos is talking about certification. So you can be a WBE, which is a woman-owned business.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an SBE, which is a small business. You can be a minority-owned business, an
Mm-hmm.
MBE. So there's lots of great things that if you fall into one of those categories, there's just so much work out there.
Yeah.
And Carlos was saying about certification. So if you are a woman-owned business, meaning a woman that owns 51% or more of the business, WeBank, WBENC, if you look that up, they're the national organization that certifies woman-owned businesses. And if you're in the California, Arizona, Colorado area, I believe, you would go to WBEC, WeBank West. And they did the certification for us, which was great. And there's another company called CertifyMyCompany.com, a wonderful gal named Heather Cox. She certifies all different certifications or provides help with all different types of certifications. So lots of things just to investigate. But
yeah, and investigate your local agency services, mm-hmm. because the agencies themselves have services that help you get certified. Another great tool is to look at your local chambers of commerce, because they also can help you get certified. So Dana and I are members of the Latino Chamber of Commerce, the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce here in California, and they provide classes on government contracting and everything.
They do. That's right. There's one coming up this week. Yes.
Yeah,
so there's so much out there. Once you start, you can go to your local SBA and find out, but definitely worth checking out and just start. We started at the city level, city
mm-hmm.
of Los Angeles, our hometown, and then we get the contract within the city. So funny enough, we're getting to know all the agencies within the city, and we're gaining a reputation, as good providers. So.
Well, and that's an important point that Dana just made quickly there. You gain a reputation in the government contracting space. It's working with the government. You should think about it as if you were working with a company that had a bunch of divisions in it, mm-hmm. because it's literally a company. They right. all talk to each other within the space, all the people that are in charge of procurement of contracts. And if you don't deliver, everybody else will know that you didn't deliver.
Exactly. So. And the other thing is it's all about supplier diversity. That's why we mentioned those certifications, WBE, SBE, minority-owned businesses, because it's all there's disadvantaged business owners and there's veteran-owned businesses. So it's all about supplier diversity and bringing different types of businesses and company, different types of organizations to these government entities, because they want it. There's mandates, of course, to be diverse and not just hire the big prime that everybody knows already, but to have all of us working in the space and being able to provide. Certainly in Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti is a big proponent of the small business owner and bringing business to them and supporting it. So that's kind of what we know about government contracting, but certainly reach out and there is, if you are in Los Angeles, you want to check out LABAVN.org. That's the home where all the government contracts come in for a majority of the departments in Los Angeles. LABAV as in Victor N.com or .org. And that's great. Check out the space. It's been just great for us, and people make a living just in the government contracting space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity, and don't think that you're too small to do it, because even if you just provide one piece of a service that's needed out there, if you are part of the government contracting sourcing mm-hmm. Element, which is BAVN, right? LA BAVN in Los Angeles, for example, companies like us that serve as what is called a prime. So there's prime contractors and subcontractors. The prime contractor is the one that's in charge of the big contract. And then we use subcontractors underneath us to execute pieces of the contract. If you are part of BAVN, part of what we have to do as prime contractors is reach out to subcontractors that are on Bavin that do portions. And especially if they're small business, especially if they're disadvantaged, especially if they're women owned, or especially if they're minority owned, which has a bigger chunk in there of set aside. We are required to reach out to some of those companies. And through that, we've actually met quite a few companies that we work with, or we're working with in both the public and the private sector. So it's a great place for you to make connections within the industry that could go beyond just your government contracting space.
Yeah, we formed a coalition of people that we all do enough so we could actually go in on a project together. We all do a little bit of something, cover every possible certification. So we're just looking for the ideal project for ourselves.
Yeah, so don't think that you're too small, that you're not going to be able to get anything out of it. Because if you are willing to put in the time and the effort that it takes, then you could come out of it with even more than what you expected to get.
And I do want to wrap it up just to say that Carlos and I did not know when we applied for the Los Angeles Public Library, really know the difference or the true depth of government contracting between a prime contractor and a sub. We're like, we're going in as primes. Well, who wouldn't,
Yeah.
And then we get this thing. So, I mean, how fortunate are we and blessed are we that we have been able to deliver for 3 years now, but there's lots of stuff to learn. It can be super fun and certainly worth the effort.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Talk to you guys next time.
Thank you for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe to and share Wicked Marketing on Apple Podcasts and write an awesome review for us. We are also on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Play. See you next time.